Hey everybody, just a quick story fresh off the presses over at r/MrRipper. This one was posted by u/FearMySpeed. It is entitled, How the Dual-Wield Demon's Successor Demanded a Trial by Combat with the Grim Reaper and Cheated Death until the end of the campaign. This is by far my most incredible experience I've ever had while playing D&D. Moments like these are why I love this game so much. Let me lay out the cast. One of my friends played a true neutral changeling monk called Akira. Supposedly, Akira had burned down his house when he was extremely little and had turned to a nearby temple in hopes of redeeming himself. Unfortunately, he burned that place down in his sleep too. He was actually a distant descendant of a fire elemental, and the power he harnessed was only just reawakening. We also had a lawful neutral half-orc paladin named Keith. The guy who played Keith was a bit sillier when creating his backstory. If you've seen Rick and Morty, you know about the Citadel of Ricks. Well, apparently, because this guy always played a half-orc named Keith, they were all related through some kind of tribe in a similar way. I like it already. Another of my friends was playing a chaotic good human rogue by the name of Scarlet. Apparently, her mother had been a powerful paladin, and her father a deadly barbarian. Both of them wanted her to follow in their footsteps and become a mighty warrior, but they had different plans for her if she should take the path of the paladin or the path of the barbarian. Eventually, Scarlet grew tired of the conflict and chose her own path, rogue. She fled home without them noticing, and to this day wonders if they regret fighting over it. There was also a chaotic neutral centaur bard named Richter, probably the most experienced roleplayer in the group. This guy was an amazing voice actor and roleplayed his character perfectly, except I don't really remember what his backstory was, which is a shame, because I remember really enjoying it. What I do remember was that towards the end of his backstory, he met my character and offered to be his noble steed and partner. Watching him try and fail to seduce everything was also hilarious. Apparently, it was his first time playing the horny bard trope. He was just curious to see if it was as funny as his other friends had said. Lastly, I was playing a chaotic good Aasimar blood hunter named Marco. Marco had come from a powerful order of Aasimar knights known as the Divine Guard. The order was led by 5 powerful Aasimars who specialized in specific sword techniques: the sword-throwing saint, the grappling Goliath, the half-swording hero, the reverse grip renegade, and Marco's father, the dual-wield demon. Marco was also in the Divine Guard and took after his father in the ways of dual wield. The order was going corrupt, and Marco's father was trying to fight it, leading to a political civil war within the Divine Guard, one that Marco's father would lose. He was killed by one of the other 4 leaders, and Marco was to be next. However, he escaped. Marco, reduced to vigilante status with a bounty from the Divine Guard on his head, experimented with the ways of blood magic and applied it to his dual longswords. He searches the land for strength in hopes of returning there one day and restoring the order his father founded to its former glory. We were playing an online campaign using Roll20. Our DM had created a world where the evil were already in power and were running this world as a dictatorship. Our party had been hired by a rebel group to aid them in their quest to overthrow the dictator. One of our quests was to infiltrate a military base controlled by the big bad evil guy's army. Scarlet was leading since she was the stealthiest out of all of us. Our goal was to locate a high-ranking officer, kidnap them, and interrogate them on the whereabouts of the next temple. There were 10 of them, each holding a puzzle piece to the location of the MacGuffin. We got more information than that by the determination of the dice, and Marco found out that the Divine Guard had been paid off by the dictator's military to act on their side, hence the knights turning bad. There were also spies working in the Keith tribe, and we now knew we couldn't trust any information we got from Keith's family. The dice had been on our side up until we tried to get away. We tried knocking the commander unconscious, but I rolled a 5 on my strength check, and he remained conscious, crying out in pain, which alerted nearby enemies. The party left the room and was immediately cornered. The DM had us roll initiative. The encounter was going fine. It was mostly a few grunts with 2 wolves on their side, and our heroes fought valiantly to defeat them. Then it all fell flat when their reinforcements showed up, who other than the Divine Guard. The 4 remaining leaders glared at my character, who stared daggers right back.
"Which of you is responsible for the death of my father?"
Marco bellowed, drawing his dual longswords and activating his crimson right on both of them. They crackled with electrical energy, and he leveled one of them at the elite swordmeisters. The reverse grip renegade stepped forward.
"That'd be me,"
he said with a vile smirk on his face. Marco turned to face the rest of the party, his eyes bloodshot. and his teeth bared.
He's mine,
he growled. Props to the DM for how these DM PCs played. Since they used swords in special ways, he crafted alternate rolls for reverse grip strikes, half swording strikes, grappling strikes, and sword throwing strikes. Reverse grip was rolled with dexterity instead of strength and did a bonus of +3 damage if the user was close enough. Half swording either did bludgeoning damage or piercing damage depending on how the user was half swording. For grappling, the user had to roll a strength contest with the target instead of rolling to attack. And sword throwing had a range of 70 feet and did 1d6 +5. He really took the whole Masters of Swordsmanship thing seriously. So the party and the Divine Guard went to town on each other, and it really came down to the wire. Marco and the reverse grip renegade were constantly exchanging blows until finally Marco fell. I was on death saves at this point. Everyone else was too busy to help me up, so I had to roll. First time around, I got a nat 1. Which meant that if I didn't pass the next one, I was donezo. My turn rolled around again, and I still failed. The DM began describing my death. The lightning crackling along the length of your longsword slowly fades as the last of the blood powering it drains from your body. The Grim Reaper appears to collect your soul. An idea pops into my head. More of a joke than anything, but I decide to say it anyway. I ask the Reaper for a trial by combat. The Discord call is full of laughs for a moment. The DM, however, goes silent, which tells me everything. He's considering it. How are you asking him? He asks. I clear my throat and get into character.
I can't die yet. I have too much unfinished business in the land of Deterain. Allow me to finish what I've started. Allow me to prove I'm capable of doing so. I beg of you,
Marco pleads. The DM thinks for a moment, then tells me to roll persuasion. I roll and end up just barely scraping past and succeeding the check. I receive a private message from the DM telling me the outcome.
If you can best me in combat, I will give you life again until you've completed your so-called unfinished business, that is.
The rest of the party put their combat on hold. They wanted to listen in and focus on what would be the most intense battle of the campaign thus far. Just Marco, the Aasimar Blood Hunter, the dual-wield demon's successor, versus the Grim Reaper himself. This was going to be epic. DM whips up a Grim Reaper DM PC character sheet and a small abyssal arena to set us both down in. Marco readies his blades and instantly prepares a Blood Curse of the Marked, which means that all Crimson Right damage he would deal to the Grim Reaper would be doubled. Meanwhile, the Reaper was drawing his scythe from his long cloak. The fight was very intense. We both kept rolling very high. Marco was level 13 at the time, so for balance, the DM was only using abilities up to a level 13 Grim Reaper, despite the character itself being level 20. The clash of lightning and death was eerie and terrifying, and the rest of the group was cheering Marco on out of character. Bruised and beaten, Marco was slowly losing. My first sword struck out, failing to beat the Reaper's AC, but I rolled a nat 20 on my offhand sword's follow-up strike, so a critical hit plus double the lightning damage. The Reaper staggered and collapsed, his scythe falling from his skeletal hands, and that's where the session ended. Between that session and the next, I asked the DM what would happen if I rolled higher on my persuasion check. If I had rolled slightly higher, the Reaper would have let Marco go for good, as long as he bested him in combat. Roll a nat 20, and Marco could have skipped the trial entirely, instead being brought back to life instantly. But instead, Marco's life now had until the end of the campaign. Then, the Reaper would come for him again. When the next session began, Marco awoke, and the battle against the Divine Guard had supposedly ended. The rest of the group and the DM had continued it between sessions, and the group was gathered anxiously around his body. Upon his eyes fluttering open and a generic "Did we win?" the group lets out an uproarious cheer. Richter picks up Marco in a bear hug. The two were really close friends after the time they had spent together. Marco was happy to be back, but he was also conflicted. You see, Richter wasn't his only close friend. The entire party was always so happy with each other, and they loved one another to pieces. He couldn't put a downer on them by letting them know he had limited time left. Could he? Richter was his best friend and closest ally. Marco and Keith always had each other's backs. Akira had been highly lonely until Marco helped him open up, and Scarlet had a not-so-subtle crush on Marco too. He didn't want to put the burden on them, so he kept quiet. Fast forward to the end game of the campaign. It's our final quest, and the big bad evil guy has the MacGuffin, a powerful, legendary sword which was once wielded by a god. The dictator's name was Aaron the Brutal. He was human, Oathbreaker Paladin. He'd been searching for this sword for years in the hopes that it'd help him ascend to godhood. So now our party had to fight him and his legendary sword. A band of high-ranking military officials from Aaron's army, Aasimar Knights from the Divine Guard, and even a few half-orc warriors from the Keith tribe. We had the aid of the rebels, but it still wasn't exactly in our favor. Then, just when it seems like we're about to TPK, the Grim Reaper appears again.
He's back,
Marco asks. bewildered. The Reaper pulls his scythe out and prepares to fight Aaron's army. The rest of the party gives Marco a weird look, but it lasts less than a second before they're reinvigorated by the new ally and rush into battle once more. During the fight, Marco and Richter reach out to the Divine Guard knights on the battlefield, sheathing their weapons and hoping to make amends.
"You and I once fought for the same cause,"
Marco began.
"The same, just cause. We fought for honor and valor, protecting the weak and keeping the strong in check. And you threw that all away for a purse of gold? My father would be rolling in his grave right now if he knew what was happening here."
DM has me roll persuasion. It's an 18. The majority of the knights I've spoken to turn their blades at Aaron the Brutal, and the fight begins to turn in our favor. We win, defeating Aaron and destroying the sword. We all celebrate as the Reaper wanders over to collect Aaron's soul, banish him to the afterlife. Then he approaches Marco.
"It seems our deal is rearing its ugly head."
Marco's expression turned solemn, and the rest of the party gave him another confused look. Scarlet placed one hand on Marco's shoulder and turned to the Reaper. "What are you talking about? What deal?" The Reaper pointed a bony finger at the back of Marco's head, his voice gravelly and hoarse.
"Your friend and I made a deal quite some time ago. He died for a brief moment and challenged me to a judicial duel. If he won, he'd have until his quest in this world was completed. Now, Aaron the Brutal is dead. The Paragon's blade has been destroyed, and the Divine Guard is on the road to redemption. It seems like Marco is out of time."
Everyone turned to Marco again, begging him to say it wasn't so. The Reaper backed away slowly.
"I'll give you some time to say your goodbyes."
Marco took each of the party members in turn, tears brimming in his eyes.
"Akira, don't stop trying to control your flames, and don't let your lack of control now stop you from settling down. You're kind, with a huge heart. You'll find your way someday."
Akira nodded, bowing his head in respect. Marco mirrored the bow before turning to Keith.
"Keith, from one night to another, thanks for all the help. I'm sure Zeus has never had a champion quite like you."
Marco and Keith saluted each other. Next, he turned to Scarlet.
"Scarlet, I need to ask a huge favor of you. I need you to lead the Divine Guard in my stead."
Scarlet's jaw dropped. "What? I couldn't possibly. I'm not a knight," Scarlet spluttered.
"Your mother was, though. She fought for the Divine Guard while it was still doing good. If anyone's suited to lead them, it's you. Promise me you'll put them on the right track."
Instead of an actual answer, Scarlet leaned in and kissed Marco without a second thought. She didn't say anything, but it was code for, "I'll do it." So it didn't matter. Lastly, Marco made eye contact with Richter.
"Richter, you're the closest friend I ever made. A knight couldn't ask for a better steed than you, and a tavern couldn't ask for a better musician. Continue on, don't let our tale die. Sing songs about our legacies and share them with the world."
Richter initially went to salute him, but Marco interrupted the formality and went for a tight hug. At last, Marco turned to the Grim Reaper and nodded.
"I'm ready."
The Reaper raised his scythe high above Marco's head before cleaving downward. The blade seemingly passed through his body, only for his flesh and blood to then drop to the floor, and his soul remained standing. The Reaper watched him for a moment before he spoke again.
"I'd normally just send a soul to the afterlife on their own, but given your courage in life, I suppose it's only fair I give you an introduction to what it's like there. Come with me, I'll show you the way."
The Reaper turned and opened a door out of thin air and glided through it. Marco turned to look at the party one last time before following the Reaper through the door. A couple of weeks after our last session, the DM sent us each an epilogue. Akira had gone to study at the Temple of Cinders, one of the temples we had visited on our quest, in hopes of learning how to earn mastery over his elemental blood. He studied under the tutelage of a tiefling warlock and eventually became a powerful pyromancer monk. Keith had continued his paladin duties, but had joined the Divine Guard as one of their most powerful warriors. He claimed to have spoken with Zeus directly and told everyone about it. Scarlet became a keeper of peace within the Divine Guard. She had decided that the whole idea of a 5-leader council was bad, and eliminated the concept of specialized swordsmanship entirely. The only tie to it was a large statue of Marco, the only warrior in the Order's history who had mastered all 5. Richter was mostly alone. However, from time to time, he'd return to the tavern where he met Marco the first time, and he'd follow the order of singing songs about their legacy. People loved to hear the tale of how Aaron the Brutal was overthrown, and it earned him quite the reputation across the kingdom. His songs even reached the ears of a new leader, who enlisted Richter as his personal steed and ally. As for Marco, well, years after he died, The Grim Reaper passed the blessing onto Marco before retiring. The Aasimar was now tasked with the job of reaping dead souls, separating their souls from their bodies with his swords, and guiding them to the afterlife. Eventually, he'd see his friends again when it was their time to pass. But until then, he was alone. This campaign was amazing and a joy to play. I loved it to bits. And Marco the Aasimar Blood Hunter is by far my favorite character I've ever played. Again, props to the DM for allowing such an interesting turn of events to play out and putting so much effort into creating a game that was fun and enjoyable for us as players. I don't think I'll ever play another D&D campaign that will top this one. Wow, that was amazing. I got goosebumps like at least 5 or 6 times while I was reading this story. Thank you so much for sharing. That was amazing. Salutations, my sweet summer children. It is I, Dave Makes Noises, the Doctor Who of Dungeons & Dragons storytelling on YouTube. Just wanted to take a second to thank you/FearMySpeed from r/MrRipper for sharing this absolute certified banger with us. This was one of the best D&D stories I have seen so far. You slayed it, friendo. Please go show you/FearMySpeed some love with your sweet, sweet updoots on the original thread, link below. Don't forget to tune into our streams, Sundays and Wednesdays, 2 p.m. Pacific, 5 p.m. Eastern, 10 p.m. GMT. We out here telling them stories and rolling them dice, my babies. Come hang out. It's always a riot. If you're looking to DM a campaign and are having trouble getting humans to show up at the same place, at the same time, on a regular basis, you may have some luck finding a party on our Discord server. People are picking up games left, right, and center. It's really exciting to see so many people connecting and jumping into some great gameplay and new friendships. With that having been said, the rest of our Discord is pure chaos, to be honest, so hopefully you're up for that. And if not, there is no shame in muting notifications as you see fit. Shouts out to our beloved team of mods and admins, by the way. This is the best and craziest Discord server I have ever seen, and it's all thanks to you. We are lucky to have you in our corner, and we love you. And indeed, we love all of you out there in the audience today. Thank you so much for tuning in. Please sub for Nat 20s, and we will catch you soon.